right. I am really happy and excited to introduce Dr. Stacey Kerr to all of you. Stacey's a teacher, physician. Can you, okay, is this better? Yeah. Yes? Okay. Stacey's a teacher, physician, and author living and working in Northern California. She lived in the largest intentional spiritual community in the U.S., The Farm in Tennessee, for 10 years, where cannabis was used daily by many of the members, and there she explored the spiritual aspects of mind-expanding medicines. After leaving the farm, she went to medical school while her kids were both in elementary school and became a grandmother before she finished her residency in family medicine. She had a full-scope family practice in which she delivered hundreds of babies and helped them grow to adulthood, and then wrote a book, Home Birth in the Hospital, to help empower women who have babies in hospital settings. Today, Dr. Kerr is going to talk with us about the recent science regarding pregnancy and cannabis.
Hi, I'm Tara and I worked together for quite a while. We had a really good time working together for the Society of Cannabis Clinicians, and those were good days. I've been a friend of cannabis since I was 19 or 20, University of Missouri, and the girl across the hall was going into her dorm room and hiding out, and then what's going on in there. And so one thing led to another, and cannabis has been a big part of my life ever since then. I married my ex-husband and the father of my 2 kids because he gave a joint to a deputy sheriff in the state of Missouri in 1972. I was pregnant. We didn't intend to get married, but it's against the law in the state of Missouri to cohabitate. So it was he go to jail or we get married. So it was a shotgun wedding. And my father kicked me out of the house because I said I smoked marijuana and was not going to stop. He took me back when I got an MD. I've been in jail in Texas. That was not fun. You too? Not fun. A lot of tears there. When I went to medical school, I did not stop using cannabis. I vividly remember studying the function of the kidney. It's so intricate. It's so cool what happens in the kidney. So I would smoke and study how deeply the kidney works and the chemicals and the tubules. And I'd really get into it. And then getting ready for Monday morning midterm, it would be a Diet Dr. Pepper and memorization. So I learned to use it judiciously where I needed it. I went to study family medicine in Santa Rosa at a family medicine residency there, and I stayed there to go into practice. And a lot of my patients, I had an old-style family practice. I knew my patients. I saw them regularly. And they learned that I was cannabis friendly. They could tell me if they were using, because then we could talk about it. And they were dying for someone to talk to. I remember that when I was a young mom and not even thinking of going to med school. And I was sitting around with a bunch of doctors and they were talking about the GI high. And I go, oh my God, these doctors are talking about pot and GI highs and it's so scientific. And here I am. So I overdosed on cannabis. And good, it's a surprise. I overdosed on cannabis once, and it was not pleasant. I went cataleptic. I could not move a single muscle. I couldn't move a jaw muscle to talk. I wasn't scared as much as I couldn't move. And when I came out of that state of catalepsy, I go, what the fuck was that? What did that herb that I've used my whole life do to me that made me be that way? And a few friends had said, hey, when that happened to you, how come you still use that stuff? It's my friend. I just need to know the boundaries. I'm a lightweight. So that was when I started studying the science of cannabis, because basically I'm a user who's a scientist, and I love this shit. So I delivered a lot of babies. It was one of the reasons I became a doctor was so that I could do that and so I could watch those babies grow up, which I've been able to do. And I know a lot of my patients in Sonoma County were using cannabis while they were pregnant. And so I got to watch that whole process. And then I was asked to look into this topic because not too many people are brave enough to talk about this topic, to tell you the truth. So I am, and I do. I don't think cannabis is bad for pregnant women, personally. My doctor self, though, standing over here to be the doctor self, says, you know, maybe we don't know everything. Maybe there is something going on and I shouldn't be so lackadaisical about it because of my past and my culture. Maybe we need to be careful, and if so, I want to know why, how, and what to say to my patients. So with somewhat of an open mind, I went to look at the available research, and that's what I'm going to share some of with you today. First of all, why do you want to use cannabis during pregnancy? Probably everybody here knows, but if you've ever been pregnant with a 2-year-old and maybe also a 4-year-old, it's pretty obvious why you might want to use cannabis. Nap time, oh my gosh, yes. So there's that, there's the nausea of pregnancy, there's aches, pains, and there's mental health maintenance, I call it. Just keeping yourself together, a bit positive. Change the channel when it gets too much. So the most common problems that are reported by those who are against using cannabis for pregnancy are that it's going to miswire the brain, because THC does go into the brain, or that it causes, they're sure about this one, it causes babies to be born who don't weigh enough. They're small when they're born. Again, I ask you, you women who have ever pushed a baby out, if it was a little bit smaller, is that such a bad thing if it's healthy? If it's healthy, okay? Like, I don't want a 10-pound baby. So again, if it's healthy. So I'm looking at all this and I'm going, well, I haven't seen that. I have not seen these kids necessarily grow up to be miswired. Well, maybe they are and I don't notice it. Or maybe I'm miswired. No. But then my babies weren't small, and I don't remember a lot of small babies, and I haven't delivered a lot of small babies from growers in Northern California. So I went to the study done by a gentleman called Hayek Bakshir. I had to figure out how to say his name. Hayek Bakshir. He's the one who studied thousands of women in Australia who were pregnant and admitted to using cannabis. And the way he collected his data was these women would come into the public health clinic to establish care. And it was probably in their first trimester, and they're going to sit at a desk across from the midwife who's doing the intake with a computer, and part of her intake is when was your last period, and all those questions, plus, have you ever used any illicit drugs? How many of you would answer yes to that question? Yeah. Are you currently using illicit drugs? Well, the women who did answer yes, they were tracked. And they were also referred to, after the pregnancy, to, I think, a drug rehab clinic. So, you know, they leave and they talk to their girlfriend who's also pregnant and says, hey, they're going to ask you this question, and you're going to get referred to drug rehab. Watch out. So I propose that his data was quite skewed based on the collection, the way he collected.
Yes.
But that's a big study. There are thousands of people, and they said initially they were small when they were born. Too many babies were born small for the gestational age, how big they should have been for how long they were inside. And more admissions to the intensive care unit. Well, that's worrisome. But I'm not seeing that pan out in real life. So I go back to his collection techniques. Okay, so I can set that one aside a bit. But what about this brain miswire thing? Well, this is kind of cool. It turns out that Of course, we have endocannabinoids. Our body makes cannabinoids that are essential to our well-being. They're actually essential for making babies. Without endocannabinoids, we would not be able to fertilize the ovum. We would not be able to implant the ovum. None of those functions would happen without the dance the endocannabinoids do in our body. Another thing the endocannabinoids do is they guide the development of a baby's brain. You got these little nerve cells, and they have to send out tendrils, axons, to connect up with others and make the brain work. The natural cannabinoids in our body tell them where to go. Make it happen right. So the theory is, if you throw THC into there, it's going to miswire it. It's going to take over for the natural ones that know how to do it, and it's going to send them in the wrong direction. And this could be very bad. Not only could it miswire the brain, but if you have a family propensity to schizophrenia or some other kind of mental disease, it could possibly make that more likely to manifest in that baby because you're messing with nature. C-sections mess with nature too, but that's another topic. So I looked at the studies about this, and that made me seriously concerned because I don't want to miswire, and I don't understand how those chemicals work in the brain that well, better than most people in this room, but still. And I think, well, who's to say THC isn't going in there and doing the job just as well? Or I don't know, maybe better? Who's to say? We don't know. We know it goes in there, but do we really know what it does? So I found this cool study that looked at a thing called global motion perception. Global motion perception is that ability we have, if you're like watching the Super Bowl and it's halftime and the band comes out on the field and they make those patterns. I think this went away.
Yeah.
And it makes those patterns. Ooh, that's better anyway. Most of us are able to see the pattern. People who do not have good global motion perception can maybe only see the tuba player. Autistic kids, kids with fetal alcohol syndrome, miswired brains. This is one of the ways scientists test for miswired brains, is to measure global motion perception. Well, that's cool. How'd the kids do? Well, fetal alcohol syndrome, it was bad. Marijuana exposure without any other exposure, oops, it was better. Not just better, it was better than normal. Turned out that that when they tested kids who were exposed to both alcohol and marijuana during pregnancy, the two balanced each other out. So I guess if you were irresponsible, you could say if you're going to drink, you should also smoke. But I think you probably shouldn't drink. But if you have a good reason to use cannabis while you're pregnant, you should consider doing that. So that kind of made me more comfortable with the miswiring the brain part. So, hang on, let me see. I don't want to miss something here that I wanted to say to you. Hyatt Boxer. Oh yeah, it was the one about how kids, when they're 14, are not going to be doing well in school. If they were exposed to cannabis during pregnancy, they don't do well on school tests academically. You're setting them up for failure. Again, I wasn't seeing that, but what's the deal? Now that study done by a gentleman named Goldschmidt, that was much harder for me to tear apart and find what was wrong with it or what was good with it. So I sent it to a statistician, and he called me back and he said, oh, here's the deal. Yes, these kids did poorly when they were 14, but they had what's called mediating factors. A mediating factor is something else that has to happen to make the result happen. So these kids had to either be depressed at a certain age, have attention disorders at a certain age. They themselves had to have used cannabis before the age of 13. they had to have mediating factors that all appear to be pretty much sociological or related to class, social class. So it wasn't just cannabis. You couldn't say that cannabis alone caused these, it was boys they tested, to do poorly in school. Well, I felt better about that one also. So then I wondered about the incidence of increased mental health problems in kids who'd been exposed. What if grandma was bipolar on one side and grandpa on the other side was a paranoid schizophrenic? Should you be really careful that you don't smoke pot when you're pregnant? Because it could help that manifest in your child. And Harvard and the Boston VA looked at just this topic. And after a lot of look, they said, you know what? It's the family history, it's not the use of cannabis. They couldn't prove that cannabis had an effect that way. Well, like Antara said, I lived in a community for 10 years. No running water, no electricity, a lot of friends, and a lot of marijuana for some of us. And we had a lot of babies. We were in our 20s, 30s. We became famous for delivering babies. Ina Mae Gaskin was our head midwife, wrote a book. We were popping them out right and left. And we are still a tribe. We are still connected. We have a prayer circle. We pray for each other. We honor each other. And so because we're still connected, I thought, you know, what if I go talk to my girlfriends and find out how their kids are doing? And see how they did after all this cannabis. Well, one thing I found out was not everybody had it. It depended on who you knew, just like it does. But I put out a survey. Now I have to tell you, this was a survey. This is not a study. The people who decided to answer my survey were self-selected. 40 years later, I asked, well, first of all, the farm had like 1,917 births that we did statistics on from the years 1970 to 1994. And remember Hyatt Boxer, who said they were going to be too small and they were going to be born too early and small for gestational age. We had 4 babies out of 1,917 that were small for gestational age. Premature babies, we had 22.01%. Well, there goes Hyatt Boxer, at least for the hippies in the woods. So I got 71 respondents, and they reported on 178 kids. Apparently we had 2.5 per, which is amazingly normal. The date range was of births was from 1971 to 1991, and I mention this because that's pretty relevant for the content of the medicine. Hi over there, sorry. For the content, the medicine was not the same as it is today. I don't think we knew about Sinsemilla yet in 1971. We grew it behind the outhouse and it grew really well, but we didn't grow it like we do today. Regardless, the current age of those second gens that we call them now are 22 to 46 years old. And I asked the women, how many of you used cannabis during pregnancy? And about 25% said every day. Would have used it more if I had more. 54% several times a week. And about 21% said rarely. Then I threw in a question that I didn't know was going to be significant, which often happens, and I thought I'd ask, how many of you used it during labor? Because we were on the farm in the woods. We could do that. The midwives were doing it. 70 people answered, 1 person skipped it, and it was an even 50-50. Half the women used it during labor. A couple of women said it didn't help. It stalled them out. They had to wait till it passed before they got going again. Quite a few women said it helped immensely during labor. So that was surprising to me. I asked them about significant mental illness among their kids. meaning dysfunctional. They're on meds, maybe they're institutionalized, they need care, they need constant monitoring. The adults in the US who experience a serious mental illness in any given year is about 4.2%. The second gens with reported from a survey, remember, of significant mental illness, 5%. The self-selected part matters here because who goes to live in a commune in the woods in Tennessee? A lot of different kind of people go there. A lot of people who don't fit into society already. So you have to take that into account. Worried about addiction disorders among our kids. Significant addiction disorders in second gens on this report, 3%. Some of these did start using it when they were like 7 years old. I don't think that's good. So I asked, what are your kids doing now? Are they losers? Are they good contributors to society? And I got these great answers. So Antara's going to scroll. That's why I have slides. These are what these kids are doing right now. And there's too many of them for one slide. So we'll go on the homicide investigator for the DA. Yeah, you know, you fall far from the tree sometimes. Aquatic biologist, teachers, Peace Corps, of course the trades, creative arts, Second City Improv, that's cool. A photojournalist. One of our kids is a champion, what is the fight? Yes, he's a vegan still. Most of our kids still are, because we were. So that was reassuring to me. These kids are doing great jobs. Okay, some of them aren't, but mostly they're doing good jobs. So that was old stuff. I wanted to bring it up to date. And this is a hot topic, so science is looking at it. They're reviewing it, they're looking, so there's some more recent stuff. One was, well, not so recent, but in 1997, the DPA, the Drug Policy Alliance, looked at it. And Lynn Zimmer, who is the Associate Professor of Sociology at Queens College in New York, looked at this topic. And they decided that the adverse outcomes from using cannabis during pregnancy were inconsistent from one study to the other. Yeah, duh. It contributed less than alcohol or tobacco, and their findings, they showed no consistent relationship of fetal harm to either the timing or the degree of marijuana exposure. And they said the weight of current 1997 scientific evidence suggests that marijuana does not directly harm the human fetus. Cool. So coming up to 2013, the OBGYN specialty did a review to teach their doctors on continuing medical education. And this review was done by a couple of maternal fetal medicine doctors at the University of Arizona in Tucson. And they said there may be some effects noted in older children. I attribute that to the Goldschmidt study where the kids were also had other issues going on. But they said if these effects do exist with light, moderate, or sporadic use, they're sufficiently subtle as to not be consistently demonstrated between studies. That is a chicken shit statement by a very conservative specialty that basically says it's not that bad, and we really don't want to say it, but that's the truth. So they said you should not use punitive measures on families that are using it during pregnancy, which was helpful because I have known Child Protective Services to come after babies when moms test positive in the hospital when they have their baby. There was a systematic review and meta-analysis done in the British Medical Journal in April of last year. They looked at 24 studies, and the bottom line was more research needs to be done. They said that it was conflicting and that they looked at the studies I mentioned to you, low birth weight, but then they looked at the other studies that said no problem. And they came out saying, we got to look at this further. And then the latest was the Green Journal, which is the OBGYN specialty journal. It's called the Green Journal because the cover's been green as long as I can remember. And they had a review team that searched through all the data through August of 2015. And their final statement was that maternal marijuana use during pregnancy is not an independent risk factor for adverse neonatal outcomes. Thus, the association between maternal marijuana use and adverse outcomes appears attributable to tobacco use and other confounding factors. So yeah, it's probably okay to use it during pregnancy, but with intent. Always use it with intent. I mean, when I was 20, I didn't. You know, it's a social thing, but consider why before you use, and be aware, be mindful about it. And there are valid safety concerns about using it anytime, but especially during pregnancy. I mean, there is the law in some states. There's child protective services. Kids who are either active or passively exposed. Pets. I almost killed my dog once with brownies I made as a Christmas present for someone and put under the tree. It wasn't pretty. The cannabinoid content is definitely not what it used to be. And as we've talked about earlier, herbicides, pesticides, chemicals. Know where your medicine's coming from. And also be careful dabbing in oils and edibles. Just go gentle and know that you're using it for a reason and there's two of you using it. And that's what I have to say.